Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Black and the Birds Black Arts Matter conversation. I'm excited to have you tuning in with us today. We have some special guests. I also have a special co host, which you can't see her yet, but she is in the room and she will be showing up just shortly. So, what I'm going to ask you to do is to like this video, share it with your friends, share it widely, because for the next hour, we have the pleasure of being in conversation with a couple of local Black artists to share their work with you and also to talk a little bit about their story. And this will be a series of conversations with Black artists in Central Virginia and beyond. So without further ado, I want to introduce my co-host, Christina Davis, the artist.
Hello,
And
everybody.
I'm so glad she could be here with me. And so I'm going to turn it over to Christina to introduce our guest for today.
Hello, everybody. I'm so excited because she's also a good friend of mine, so it makes me even extra happy to get to gush about her work. But you probably recognize her if you happen to notice our new gallery installation. The Midtown Art Gallery is something you literally can drive right by it if you go up and down Fort Avenue and see some of her gorgeous African American portraiture work. Her photography is phenomenal, even if she's just taking a picture of you and your family. But it was just amazing to see her vision and her style come out in all these pieces. And it's just really nice to see something that, especially during these times, that you can literally see it right out there as a public art installation. So hopefully we will get to learn more about where she got all these amazing ideas and style and vision from today. And so hopefully I'm going to hand it over to her now so she can tell us a little bit about how she came into art or what her first pieces were and her vision of where she sees her art going in the next few years. So, Michelin, I'll hand it over to you so you can tell us a little bit about yourself. Shorthand it if you need to, but I'm certain everyone's wanting to know what got you into the art world in the first place.
Hi, so thanks for having me today, and I'm excited to be able to chat with everyone. I got into doing photography in high school. I actually took one class back when Mr. Yateman was the photography and yearbook teacher, and I just fell in love with it. It was just simple, 35 millimeter film, simple 50 millimeter lens, Pentax style camera. But I tell you, like, I fell in love with it and I never wanted to stop doing it. And the wildest thing is, like, I couldn't really figure out what I wanted to do with my life. Which is a weird thing to ask someone who's like in 10th and 11th grade to be thinking about what are you doing after high school for college and what are you going to be doing to set yourself up really for a career. And I just could never land the plane on anything. But photography really made me happy. And so that was the start and the catalyst that got me, going into the arts. I love the arts, period. Like I was definitely more of a performing arts person, like singing and music, like playing a bunch of instruments growing up and um, even like a little bit of like acting in theater and plays and stuff like this. But I would say that my serious foray into visual art probably started with that photography class and just grew from there. And then I went to college, of course. I went to Virginia Intermont and I got my bachelor's of arts in photography and digital imaging. And then I just was like, boy, what am I going to really do with life? And so um, I've been able to keep creating for myself. And so when you see like the fine artwork that's up or that I get to post from time to time, that's when I really get to express myself. But I'm also able to make a living with the skill of photography through marketing, through web design, and all these other things that I also took in college while learning how to perfect and market my own photography. It actually opened another door to be able to be marketable for other things as well. So I guess that's my path in a nutshell of how I got here.
Were there any artists in particular, or what was your inspiration? I mean, why did you, was there anyone or any event that kind of inspired you the most?
So my husband is actually an artist. He's a kick butt artist, probably far better than I am, especially when it comes to anything illustration, drawing, concept based. He's always been like that. And I've always had very creative friends. I've always had peers, whether it was in high school or college or beyond, that have just always inspired me, like their work or their process was just like, you know, like ridiculous. Um, I think there are also like people that I got to study over time. Even Dorothea Lange, who is a woman photographer, that used to take pictures during I want to call it during the Great Depression. And she was just taking portraits of people in these like camps that were set up while people were just kind of traveling because they didn't have a home anymore. So they would have these camps. And I remember she took this picture called The Migrant Mother, and it's this woman, you see it in Time Magazine all the time. It's this woman that's kind of looking off into the distance, holding these two kids. And even though that was very photojournalistic, I fell in love with the concept of encapsulating a piece of humanity, taking a picture of a time or a feeling or an emotion or something that really connects all of us. And I very, very much so was inspired by that piece. I was also very, very inspired by the fact that in the field of photography, which is my specialty, is that, you know, since the cameras come out, it's probably been one of the least sexist fields of artistic expression, I guess, since the camera was really developed in the 1800s and really was taken off in the 1900s. You know, it was a tool, and so you being able to see and create. People gave you a job. They didn't care if you were a man. They didn't care if you were a woman. They cared about your ability to create. Now, I'm not saying that it might not have been harder to be like a war photojournalist or something like that, but what I am saying is that unlike a lot of art mediums, photography wasn't a door that was sealed shut to women or really sealed shut even to people of color. And so people were interested in like whatever that visual story was. And so I was definitely inspired by a lot of different people because of that. And I was grateful that photography kind of gave us that medium to be expressive.
Right. So just, I think that's interesting, the historical piece with photography. I mean, Frederick Douglass was a photographer. Ida B. Wells used lynching photos, as a way to increase awareness. And so it is a medium that has a rich history of being used in that particular way. And for some, there's a sense of freedom that comes with being an artist or using photography. And I wonder if you see the connection in your work, or if that's kind of an approach that you take to your photography, using it because it's a medium where you don't have an intermediary, right? And for most arts, you don't. You choose the subject, right? You choose how you want that subject to be represented in many ways. So I wonder if you had thought anything about photography as a means of liberation or freedom in what you do.
So the coolest part about photography, like I remember learning that if you can control light, you can be a photographer, right? That is the most dynamic part of being a photographer, is being able to go, oh, I love these highlights here, or I love these deep shadows, and how can I make this brighter? How can I make this darker? So it's not like, I love Christina. Christina is a cold beast, right? She is a painter, she's an illustrator, she's like everything. And I while I like to paint and stuff for myself, I was like impatient as a person. I liked, even though taking a photograph, even in the film days, developing film, uh, making stuff in the dark room, all of that stuff, in my opinion, still seemed a lot shorter amount of time than producing, a large scale oil painting that you had to like lit rest and dry, then come back and think about it and retweak. I was like, I'm done. You know, I got the concept. I'm ready to roll. So I love that kind of instantaneous factor, to being able to create and produce. I think that was another attraction to photography. And I'm not limited by, now, of course, this is awesome being in this digital age where there's so many resources, so many online resources, teachers, more tools. But like back in the day when it was just maybe you and your hand, you know, you had to develop a lot of skill, a lot of technique. You know, people who are really good at drawing. I don't care whether you draw for a comic book or an anime, or if you're you know, you're showing at the MoMA. Like people have dedicated hours and years to developing, you know, that style. And I felt like the liberation that came from photography was, you know, you can explore, manage your light and explore, and you're good to go. Like I didn't have to wait years to develop a technique to be able to kind of hit the ground running.
Well, I feel like, that's just what's so, great about photography. It's just one of those instant wow pieces. It's instant conversation. You instantly get that gratification on someone's face and that emotional connection that not all mediums really produce. And that's why I feel like it's something that's not going to go away anytime soon. And it's a really powerful tool just for the fact that it does connect so directly with people. And it can't help but be taken personal, which is, why I just keep emphasizing people. The Black arts movement right now is just so important because we're doing, especially your work, you're capturing history, you're capturing culture, you're passing, you're helping people pass something down and making it really easy to show children, to show other people something really to be proud of. And art really has been that, even if we're not in every book in the library, art has always successfully made us have an identity, a part to play in history, and it will just remain as something I hope that will continue to do that throughout the years. But speaking of those kind of identity crises, especially here in America, of what role do we play as a woman, especially, and as an African American woman, what do you think that has played into your work? Do you think it's like something that's very important and takes a forerunner, or like how do you see that interacting with your art and as like with your own self-identity and things?
Christina, that's a dope question. I will say this. All artists or all people, no matter who you are, when you're explaining something or creating something or experiencing something and you're relaying it to someone else, you're doing it from your unique perspective. So you're doing it from your perspective as a male or a female. You're doing it from your perspective being cisgender or LGBTQ leaning. You're doing everything from the perspective of your religion, where you live, what time and era you were born in, what kind of parents you had growing up, your local influences, like everything pours into you, and you leave those fingerprints even in the stories you tell. So the way someone might receive the story, like of I don't know, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, might feel different depending on where they live. If they've never lived in a forest, if they lived in like in a desert place, imagining getting lost in a forest might be crazy. Like, oh, why is a little kid wandering in the woods? All of that, those things, different questions we may have. And so art is no different by me as a creator, being an African American woman, you know, being someone from the South, being someone from that's very much a woman and identify as such. Um, I definitely have a different perspective that maybe people aren't used to hearing or seeing, and not because our perspectives haven't been out there, but they really haven't been paid attention to at the same level or at the same amount, depending on the field or the time period. And what I want to say too about the Black arts movement right now is that I've been so overwhelmed with how receptive people have been to it. But I think even before this moment, I feel like people were paying attention to people of color more and being interested in their stories. People are like interested in something that's just not the mainstream and the typical. I also feel like people were wanting to hear more perspectives from women, from blacks, from just something different, something that's not typical, because there are more often than not, people do want to expand themselves or at least be aware even if they're not masters, they want to be aware of what's out there, and they want to be happy, they want to be inspired, or at least they don't want to be ignorant. Now there are a few folks out here who choose ignorance, but they're really in the minority if you look at society. And so I do believe that, you know the entire world is kind of hungry for different perspectives, and not just, my perspective, but women's perspectives, blacks throughout the whole diaspora around the world. If I was not Christian and I was Muslim, or if I was Buddhist, I think I would have a whole nother vein of people who would want to know more. Just, oh, that's interesting, that's different. People want to hear about things that are not like themselves, especially if they're already drawn in because they feel like they can identify or relate to your artistry, or they respect your creativity. Then they want to hear more about how we're the same as well as how we're different.
Right. So it's almost, your identity is an asset, right? So it's in many
Mhm.
ways, because it informs your art, right? It informs the perspective that you bring to it. And even at the same time, I was reading recently about Carrie James Marshall and how one of her pieces sold for $21 million. And it was the highest amount ever paid for art created by a living African American artist. So even though, we're seeing more art, there are still kind of, in many ways, um, Black art and artists are left out of mainstream museums. And I don't know if you're seeing that, and resigned to like Black History Month, right? So, and I wonder about the expectations that people have, or that the art world has for artists. Like, is the expectation that your work only speaks to a particular, because you are a Black woman, it only speaks to certain types of interest, right? So I wonder, have you run into any of that, rather than recognizing that Blackness is vast, right? It's deep.
Mhm.
It's not just one thing,
Very
but
much
it is
so.
expansive. It's expansive, right? So
Right.
I wonder, have you run into that? Um,
So what I've run into is that okay, so speaking for myself. Like, what I've run into is trying to find places that are a good fit for
okay.
my art, right? So, like, if this is no offense to people, but if I see that, your gallery is full of only paintings, and maybe they're only paintings of fruit or landscapes or animals and different things like this, well, I already know that since I'm doing African American portraiture, or that's just Black portraiture, because you can't tell what people
Right.
are. So just people of color portraiture, and it's very stylized. Like, I cannot be offended that I'm not showing at that gallery, because I don't even fit the aesthetic of that place. And so I think, one thing as an artist is going and finding those places that actually you identify with, that you love, that you would want to be seen at. I think that Black art is almost like the new hip hop, even from a few years ago when Basquiat like re-blew up, and everybody was trying to like talk about him and buy his work. And I know he got his kind of seal of approval uh from Andy Warhol, right? And that was kind of like the Basquiat's catapult from being just a regular kid doing art to being like on the scene and really respected. But the funny thing is, his style was like very, very, very different. And so you want people who honor your style, who respect it, who want to, who gravitate to it. And so you're not out here like defending and making a case for your work, because your work should be able to make a case for itself. And I think too that I love, I want to be a great artist because I'm an artist. I don't want to be a great artist because, oh, I'm a great artist for a woman, or I'm a great artist for being Black, or being a Black woman, or being someone from the South, or someone from America. I would want my art to be able to resonate with people globally. I want my art to be able to resonate with, maybe it's like, it's not about necessarily the African diaspora, but anybody else that who understands Aboriginal or tribal or any of those type of those things, and they have that in their lineage. No matter what the continent it may have originated from. I want them to have that sense of pride too, like, oh yeah, I know what that feels like. Oh yeah, this reminds me of this and that. Um, I think those are the things that are important, and you're going to be left out if you aren't looking for the people who are going to identify with you. Like if I was a romance novelist, right, I shouldn't be offended that a nonfiction book company doesn't want to publish me. I wouldn't be, you're not going to find my book in a horror section if I write romance, unless it's a, I don't know, romantic thriller or something. I'm really like turning something on its head. But if I'm not doing that, then find the right venue, find the right voice, find the right fit for you to showcase.
We have a great listener question. Just actually, I feel like because they're listening to what you're saying, I feel like they just wanted to add to that, and they just wanted to know, due to recent events, though, do you think that there's been a tonal shift in Lynchburg or Virginia in general towards a more positive perspective of Black artists, or do you think it's about the same or just trending for now?
I think it's more, I honestly, I do think it's getting better. I don't think it's trending. I feel like that's why I compare Black art to like hip hop, right? Because hip hop is just another form of art. It's one of those things, hip hop had been around for a long time before it like really blew up and took off around the country and then around the world. So I feel like most authentic movements are like that. I think that people want to know about the subculture of being Black in America. They want to see what is that like, and not see it through the filter of someone else, another reporter or another photographer trying to photograph someone, or they want to kind of hear it from the horse's mouth. And I do think it is definitely it has an impact. So I definitely think it's going to on the rise, and it's definitely going to level out a little bit. But I think it's going to continually rise as we are continuing in that age of acceptance. I definitely see where people are going to be like, no, this is standard, this is typical. Just like how pop radio did not include hip hop when I was a little kid, and then by the time I was in high school, it was nothing for just a regular pop station to play rap. It was nothing because it became normalized. And I think that is what we're going to see. So it might not be peaking and trending, but I do believe we will get to a place where it's normalized, and that will make my heart happy, because that means we're being properly represented even inside of the art world.
We couldn't have said that any better. It's just really great to have women like you, honestly, being a voice for our communities to hear, especially when we're living in a time and age where I feel like, especially with mass media like with this, that we really can also speak for ourselves as well, which is also a very important tool to be able to have.
Mhm. Yeah, and I do think I love what I do love too about living in this era. Girl, I love some Instagram. Like I love Instagram so much because I get so inspired by living artists right now from all over the world, all over the country, and like other little towns like Lynchburg who are like blowing my socks off with their art. And they're not huge people. Some of them are, and they're big and they're showing in big places. And some of them aren't. They're just like me, just, doing their craft when they can. And but it's just so inspiring to be flooded by that, because of there's a good side to, I guess, the media that we have. And one of the most positive things is honestly being able to see all of these different women, all of these different Black people, Asian people, just all these different groups that are just like slaying it in the arts. And my newsfeed gets to be kind of just filled with all this inspiration, and it helps me honestly to be inspired to keep going, or to consider like, oh, that's a nice color palette, or just whatever. So I love Instagram for that, because it would be so hard. Like we don't have to wait now for the MoMA to come and say, oh, Christina, you're a relevant artist that deserves to be here. We don't have to wait and say, oh, Leslie, you have great topics to talk about. We're going to anoint you as the person to like lead a discussion on. Like you can go get it for yourself. You can have your own discussion. You can have this stuff and people will come to you and celebrate you and identify with you and push a thing forward. And that's the most awesome part about this time period. So it has a lot of has a dark side too, but the best part about it is that ability to build community beyond the borders of our even our language, because visuals, man, we can cross beyond so much using media, social media, to keep inspiring each other. And I can't see our parents having that same, they would have to wait to see something, across uh, coming to their local gallery, or wait to see something printed in Time magazine or Vogue or something before they could see something like that. So I appreciate the now because of how fun it is.
Well, and I think that also about how art is helping so many of us right now to cope with how stressful the world is. That, like you said, it's functioning to inspire us. It giving us joy, um, imagining something different, right, other than what is currently happening. Whether it's visual art or some other form of medium, it does seem like people are looking to art and artists to help them make sense of what's going on, or just to cope with our current realities. But I want to kind of transition a little bit, and I don't know, to the public art that you recently were involved with. So I'm going to post it up so that everyone can kind of take a look at it who hasn't seen it, who's not in Lynchburg. And, if you want to talk a little bit about it and how it came to be, and just let people know kind of, what it's about while I show them a little bit of the installation.
Sure. So the show is called American Woman, one word, American Woman with a question mark. It's really about exploring the cultural identity, um, and what it takes, just all the things are made up of to be a woman here, right, in America. And so many times when you're a person of color, whether you're black or Latina or whatever, like people just look at you and just assume like, oh, you're just black, and they don't ever consider that you probably are made up and comprised of a bunch of different nations and different backgrounds and different cultures, just like everyone else. And the wildest part is that, as much as we were taught growing up that America was like a melting pot, as we can see, black, we're not really a melting pot. I would feel like we're more like a stew. We're made up of a lot of different attributes, and maybe the taste and the flavors absorb into each other. But we've never been blended down to where we still don't have very distinct characteristics that trace back to our ancestry. And so I wanted to celebrate the different ancestries from different people, different cultures from around the world, bring those aesthetics here visually and represent them. We printed them really huge, like pretty almost larger than life sometimes, I feel, pretty large, and put it on the side of a building. Um, and it's been just such a wonderful experience having people respond to the artwork, because all of these people are just, they're just cool people. Some of them model and some of them don't, and some of them I knew before I did this project, and some of them I'm friends with now through the project doing this. So it was very important to me that I was able to highlight these different cultures from around the world, especially without becoming across like being costumey or like I was appropriating something, but truly celebrating, um, just the American woman, being a woman of
Go, girl.
color. Yeah. So that's it.
We have a listener question. Some of people are just wondering if you had a specific person in mind, a present day artist or a piece peer, since you mentioned that you had a lot of peers too, that has influenced you recently or inspired some of your work that they would love to know? Is there like a name or an artist, or even if it's an
Um,
event too would count?
Oh, well, I'm inspired. So what y'all don't know is like me and Christina are like friends for real, for real. So like I will call Christina with ideas and go, okay, I need you to help me um like focus my mind, or the opposite. I need you to help me think like really crazily. And then we'll like get to talk and chill and chat and laugh and all that kind of stuff. I'm also like super inspired by like Eric Kajes's work. It's like
Mm,
stupid good. Like it's like stupid good. I cannot handle it. Just his strokes, the emotion, the energy that he has. I'm really inspired by also my friend Twan Smith. Like I see how he's a digital artist like right now. Like so he'll do a lot of digital painting, digital drawings and stuff. But I like how he will take maybe a character or a thought and represent it in a different way. And so I think those would probably be like my local influences right now as far as like artists that just inspire me and make me want to push further.
okay. I wonder, kind of just going back a little bit in terms of pushing further, because public art can serve somewhat of a different function in terms of accessibility, right? Because it's out in the open and everyone. So I wonder what kind of impact you think the art potentially could have on younger artists or just in the community as a whole.
Well, what I've experienced, even from putting it up the day we put it up, and another day when we were just fixing stuff up, like I've had so many women coming up to me crying with tears, like happy tears, so proud and supportive of just seeing something like this in Lynchburg. I've had people tell me they don't even feel like they're in Lynchburg. Like this doesn't seem like a Lynchburg thing. We feel like this is like a big city project. People, yelling from cars like, "Oh my gosh, it's Jayla! Oh my gosh, it's Shaquana!" Because they like recognize their family member, whether it's a cousin or an aunt or something like this. Men just stopping their cars in the street and putting on their blinkers and getting out to look at the work. It's been crazy. But what it showed me is that like the role of art is really to inspire. The thing that makes a civilization is the fact that it has room for art. If you don't have art, you don't have a civilization. And so you see black art and you see it big and you see it at the same level and importance as any other art that's out there that we deem as important or worthy. And it's not commercial. I'm not selling something. I'm not saying buy my sneaker, drink my soda pop, put on my perfume. It's just art for art's sake. And that's also what's really inspiring as well. And I think that it's impacting not just the younger people that can see themselves. Like I think when you see your cousin, you kind of see yourself on that billboard as well, right? You see your whole lineage, you see your ancestry there, you see everything. But it's not just that, but you're also being able to impact the kids to go like, oh, well, I can do this because I've seen it. If I can do it, if I've seen it, then I can do it. And for older people, it's also like I don't know. I want to call it like an affirmation of yes, we're going forward. Yes, this is awesome. Yes, the world might feel like it's 1968 sometimes, but this is a reminder that it's not 1968 and we're not going back to 1968. We truly are moving forward.
And that's really one of the great things why I feel like, Black art matters so much, because I do notice that a lot of art with art culture in particular, it involves the whole body. Whether you're jumping out of a car and leaving your car there so you can go look at it, or you're listening to music and you're dancing to it, or just the color palettes, the textures, the detail in the fabrics, the style. It's very interactive, and I feel like people just love that part. There's something to do with this art. It's not the no touch and go see it in a museum and stand 15 feet away. And I really think people have been appreciating art that you can really get up close to and have a personal connection to. Um, I do see that one of our listeners also wanted to know, with that in mind, considering that he's seeing your most recent work, he's wondering, so what's your next direction? What's your next project? Or did you have any sneaky tidbits that we could all hear if it's not done yet?
So normally before I start a large scale project, I will work on stuff for maybe about, as far as research, for a long time. So I researched this maybe for a year and a half before I took one photograph. And so I'm in the research and building mode and collecting props and pieces mode for my next concept. And so that thing probably won't come out for another year or two, you know. I'm like, I just kind of take my time with it. That's a beautiful thing about it. I'm not under contract where I have to produce like I do at work. I can do this for myself on my timeline, but it's but I what my artist statement, I guess, for my next piece of work is really about. It's about Afrofuturism, right? And about is the extreme opposite of like being enslaved. Because when you have a future, you can have a hope, you can have joy, you can imagine yourself doing different things, you can imagine your kids doing cool stuff. It is just it to be futuristic is to like not be bound or tied down to anything, to any property, to just anything. And so that's a part of what I'm working on now. It's definitely gonna be more spread out in age, you know, as far as age representation, it's gonna be spread out in way more as far as gender as well. And it's really going to feel futuristic, yet retain a lot of very classic and I almost want to call them like primordial or spiritual imagery and concepts like hero or warrior or maiden or you know these type of things that appear in every single culture. But what does a futuristic version of that looks like? What does an Afro-futuristic version of that look like? So that's what I'm working on currently, but you're gonna have to wait and just enjoy what I have right now because it's not coming out anytime soon because I like to let things cook and marinate, so when it is printed I feel good about it.
That's good that you mentioned that. I feel like a lot of people, especially with just visual artists, they think you just pick up a pencil or pen and you know what you're about to do. And the first honest answer most artists give is like you said, no, I need to go look for some inspiration. I need to research. I need to think about this. I might even scratch the first idea and it might evolve into something I wasn't expecting. It's very, kind of, I don't know, it's just really enjoyable, I guess, from my own perspective too, to hear about the path or the journey to get to the final piece because it's not instantaneous. And it definitely even surprises the artist sometimes what you finished or created. So I think that's really nice that you pointed that out. That was part of your process was something very key to do is to expect the unexpected. And that's a really fun trend too, like referencing back, especially with Instagram. Space, it's the new frontier, it means hope and so much space to grow, and we don't know where we're going to go, but we got a path and there's a million stars, so why not aim for one?
Yeah, absolutely. And like also just to talk, I guess to touch on my process too as an artist, I'm definitely you got two types of artists or maybe three. You got your pre-visualization, like a person who knows exactly what they want to say and their imagery, right? You've got the post visualization person who's like, I'm just going to create and then I'm going to name this afterwards after I've digested what I've just put out. And then you've got a third person that's kind of like in between both of those things. So I am not necessarily a pre-visualist. Like when I'm imagining things, it's very much like a concept or an idea or a feeling. And then like I might photograph and play a lot with a lot of different looks, angles, scenes, you know, hold your head like this or take this off, put this on, um, and then arrive at what I want, you know. And I just free myself for the journey. It's like this, my art is like the one thing in life that I can actually just relax and be happy about. So I really just let myself enjoy that process. And, you know, I'm not Drake. I don't have to drop, or I'm not Beyonce. I don't have to drop something every like 6 weeks to stay relevant. You know, it's not, if I don't drop till like Sade for another 10 years. It's all good. We just go keep playing the Sade we got till we get the new Sade. But like those artists also inspired me too to like not feel the pressure to produce, but to make sure that whatever I'm producing, I do have like a soulful spiritual connection to it, because I think that's the type of work that people identify with and are inspired by.
Um, Speaking of inspired, we have a little bit of time left, and unfortunately, Eric can't be with us today, but we'll certainly get him for another conversation. I wonder, you had talked about Instagram, and I know that you work with young people, and I wonder what you're seeing in terms of young people in art, the interest and opportunities for them to participate and develop their own craft, but not just the craft to produce for the sake of producing, but helping them to have a perspective, right, in doing that work. And so I wonder what you're seeing. Is the younger generation? I mean, not saying we're old by any means, but you know what I mean. Are they still using the traditional means of creating art, or do you see new ways of creation for new avenues, like digital art? I know is something that is relatively new, considering the long history of art. But I wonder if you're seeing anything else, and how can we cultivate more artists or more people thinking about art as a way of expressing themselves. So I guess that was two questions. You can do it, you know.
Yeah. So I think the trends that I see are a lot of people who are younger. Let me tell you something. All these little people on TikTok,
Oh
like
yeah.
TikTok is a whole ministry. Like if you, because whatever you actually are able to communicate with these little short videos, imagine what makes you an artist is not necessarily just your technique and skill alone. It is also the message and your ability to communicate something. So if you think about the things that impact you the most, it really was communicating something to you. And that's what like latched onto your own spirit and was like, love that, or I'm feeling that, or ooh, that gave me chills. What I'm seeing is that I am excited about like this upcoming generation that's like coming up on TikTok. If you're video editing and doing things like this, like to me, video is the new photography from the early 1900s, right? So if you're doing video, if you can make these little clips like this, now imagine that in an artistic expression. Imagine that when you're communicating something that's important to you, right? And I don't care if you're communicating about suicide awareness or just pain or just anything, nature. When you're able to take that tool and then tie the tool to the soul of a message and then marry those and release that, I'm thinking that's going to be like the next kind of wave of things we see. I think we've already, younger people have already are doing that with music and sound and beat making. And then I think the next thing I would say is that, you know, I would allow a young person, if they wanted to do art, just let them do it if really that's their passion. I would tell them, let parents, let your kid, let your children do it. Like, that's hard. I know past generations, it was like I had to fight to be a photographer, y'all. Like, my mama was not trying to let me do that at first. And then,
How you
when I
gonna
was looking,
eat? How you
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
eat?
oh
How you
my
gonna pay the
gosh.
bills?
Yeah,
Right?
all of that. All of
Yeah.
that. Because they don't understand the art world, right? But also, be well rounded, have everything you need to take care of yourself. I think our society is trending to, you can't wait for someone to take care of you. You can't wait for a job, an entity, an industry to take care of you. You're going to have to learn how to stick and move to take care of yourself and to meet your own needs. So allow, the younger people, allow these kids to do their art, but also equip them to be able to like maneuver and move, to market, to sell, to defend themselves, to understand the legal stuff so they're not getting ripped off, or the accounting stuff to, make sure their money's in place. But, don't prohibit them, better equip them to win the fight. And they'll use, at some point in life, you're going to use every tool in your toolbox. So just give them the tools they need.
Okay. Well, sounds good to me. And you're not starving. So, I mean,
No,
there you go.
There
You're
you go. Not starving
you're
artists on
not
here.
not,
starving. Thank you,
I
God.
don't know
you're
what
not a
Not
that's
starving
about.
starving.
artist.
Yes, sir.
Oh, but I wonder, do we have any other questions from the audience?
I feel like you might have already touched on this, but maybe it was at the very beginning. But I guess I'll just change it a little bit. Um, for you, especially with COVID-19, I imagine some people are like me, have a home studio as well as your office studio and so forth. People are just wondering what has changed for you with your setup for work. Has there been
Um,
significant impact or changes? Like, do you feel like have you been doing a lot of studio work or outside work, like your photography? Like, what's the backdrop, I guess?
so it has been very much different. So I have uh, done all of my photography that I've done so far has been outside. My office now is at home, so I like we have taken our office and downsized it into like almost like a large storage space, and then everybody's basically working remotely, and we've been doing that since about March. Um, because our office, where I work day to day, our office have had, I have my daughter, she's 5. Another coworker of mine has like 2 small kids, like one toddler and a basically a newborn. So it's like we did not have time for COVID-19 to be an issue. And so we've all been working remotely. So when I've been doing photography so far, it's been really doing everything outside, and that's been fun. It's been kind of back to my original roots of before I had a studio and studio lights and things like this. So it's been enjoyable because I still have all this equipment to do a better job.
It's
But
pretty
yeah,
mobile. It's a
yeah,
camera. It's like an extra arm. Just come with
yeah.
me.
Yeah, or I'll make my husband or my kid hold a reflector, like hold that. And we just get it done, and that's been really nice. So that's what I've been doing. I'll probably still lean into that for a while. It might be a while before I do anything um, in studio. I might even have to shoot my whole next project outdoors in a weird outdoor studio, just to make sure everybody's comfortable and healthy and things like this and safe.
Well, like you mentioned too, research and finding inspiration and planning are very essential as well. And I feel like, we've all had plenty of that too, to be able to do those essential parts as well. And then one more question from your listeners that I thought was a really good one, that I feel like has also been brought up about the arts, not only being there on the social stands for activism and speaking about our culture and history and making it, like you said, normalizing it for people so that way they're just informed and it just is there, and we are a subculture that's right there and you can learn all about us, especially for local artists. But something else to keep in mind is of course, like mental health and the art's impact on that lately has been also getting talked about and looked at a lot. So people just wanted to hear your opinion and take with how, mental health and the grind, getting your name and your stuff out there, but taking care of yourself. I guess self-love is essentially what they're asking about. Is like, what are you doing for that? Is that for your art or something else?
So, to be y'all, this is gonna sound so funny, but when Chadwick Boseman died, dude, and I got the news of that, like I cried. I cried probably for like 3 days. Like I actually knew this dude in real life. Like it was just um and I think it was overwhelming because we were just dealing with all this other like back to back like news of shootings and police brutality and yeah, demonstrations and people dying at demonstrations and ICE and just more. It's just like every week it seems like there's so much more to be frustrated and depressed about. And one of the things that I do, I guess for myself, is unlike my younger self. I actually allowed myself to feel the feelings. So I went ahead and cried them 3 days for Chadwick. I mean, I cried good, big, whole tears. Like I just did it because I understood what he represented to me as an artist, but as a person. Um, and I also understood where he where how he kind of set the bar for all of us, like as when we talk about culture. So he's like a touchstone and a touch point in our culture. Like he's our generation's Denzel in a lot of ways. And so like I think about just feel the feelings, cry when you need to cry, talk it out I try to talk with my friends and stuff when I ask them, do they have the emotional bandwidth to deal with me, my emotions? And if they do, then I go in. I listen, I kind of like honestly have to like downstep and meditate every night before I go to sleep, because if I don't, I just have my mind is just so full of stuff, whether it's ideas or burdens or what I need to take care of. But I try to take like little things of self care. I don't care if it's just a bubble bath or I'm gonna enjoy this like really cool glass of wine, because I don't drink wine as much as I would like or as often as I can, because I am so busy. So like when I do get to like sit down or drink wine or really watch a movie on Netflix just to enjoy it, I try to make sure I give myself time to do that, to just honor myself being in a space. And I'm really grateful that I used to be more insecure as an artist when I was younger. Maybe it's from going to art school when you're surrounded by so many wonderful people. But then over time, I just kind of learned to like celebrate myself and to celebrate everyone around me. And that, like, if Christina is blowing up and doing awesome things, that does not like in any way stop or prohibit like my shine or anybody else's shine for that matter. Like stars are not in the sky getting frustrated because another star is shining. Like we all doing our job. We all shining. We all represent out here in the sky in the universe doing our thing. And that's kind of, I don't know, that thing is kind of taken so much pressure off of me over the years. Like that wasn't an immediate thing, but it was just an awareness of like, I've got to run my race. I can't keep up with anybody. I got to keep up with myself. I can't outdo someone. I need to outdo myself. Like the focus is my walk and my journey and what I'm doing. And that has helped, I guess, my mental space as far as, I don't know, maybe jealousy or frustration that I'm not out there. I'm gonna be out there when it's time for me to be out there. And if it's not time for me to be out there, all the self-promoting in the world is not going to get me any further. I'm just wasting energy because it won't my time anyways. Like, so that's I guess the type of focus I've had, these past maybe 6 or so years has just been, I got to do it my way and it's going to work out.
It's just part of the journey, though, and I definitely think you pointed out correct that there's a time for everything, and some people don't realize there's a season, and that certain things are happening. There's peaks and things like that, but there's still something to be busy with. It's not going to be same all throughout the year, and that it's really important that sometimes artists are our biggest critics, and we got to remember that the person who's pointing at the work and nitpicking the most is sometimes yourself, which is why it's great sometimes just to walk away or have a break from our own work. But I definitely, can feel that 100%, especially during this whole quarantine. It has definitely showed me that it's like, okay, walk away, get my cup of coffee, bread, not think about this, put down the devices for a second, and just live sometimes. And it's not
Yeah,
always just
I
about
agree.
even making.
I mean, just to piggyback off of that, Christina, like, some people were super progressive and just doing all kinds of stuff during quarantine. And I was not one of those people. Like, I needed time to process and think and pray and regroup and everything. Because, everybody's affected differently. And I already told myself, like, I'm not about to beat myself up because I need to take a break while everybody else trying to self-publish their next book and stuff. Y'all go ahead and do that. You got to do you do
Right.
what you need to do. Like, that's what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not, I would see these ads like, how are you spending your quarantine time? I'm thinking like, oh, none of your business. However I'm
Trying to
spending it.
stay sane,
Yeah, but
resting.
yes, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think you just have to know yourself and trust yourself. Know and trust yourself. Like, when it's time to sit down. You also know when it's time to get up and go on and
Yes.
handle stuff. And so also listen to that prodding as well. And I think, anybody can relate to that, to know yourself and trust yourself. And I just, when you talked about timing, I had originally been working with Randy maybe a year and a half on this. And so we're almost a whole year and some change behind of when we thought we were originally going to put the work up, so that shows. And I wasn't even frustrated about it because, like, I was like, oh, it'll happen when it happens, when it needs to happen. So that goes back to kind of like that question you had about timing, or what's next, or what do you feel like you have to do. um I feel like because we released it right now during this period, it's probably more relevant because people can drive by it during COVID and don't have to think about pressing into a building or sacrificing. They can just walk by or drive by. And that wasn't even a consideration a year ago or even a consideration 6 months ago. So, everything is going to happen in the proper timing, and you just got to rest in that and just do your part, to the fullest.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I think sometimes it's harder, much harder said than done. But in the end, I think if someone says what the universe has for you is for you, and kind of trusting the process or getting to the place where you can trust the process. Um,
Mhm.
so I know that our time is almost up. And I want to give you the opportunity, Michelin, to tell people again where the public art is located, how they can contact you, if they want to talk to you further or get you to work with them on some type of art or purchase something, your services. You got a cash app? You know,
I do.
that's the one thing
I
you
do.
got
I
to,
do have to get.
you can put the cash app.
You're
Hey,
so
listen,
yeah.
all
I
of
do.
that.
You're so funny. So all my stuff is pretty simple. It's all basically Michelin Hall, right? And so you can reach me. I'm on Instagram. It's my favorite thing. Of course, Facebook, but I'm on both of them at Michelin Hall. So and Michelin is Michelline. So Instagram is at Michelin Hall. Cash App is $ Michelin Hall. Let me think. Facebook, you could Google me, Michelin Hall, and I'm there. My email address, you can either inbox me on either medium, but if you wanted to hit me up on email, my email address is Michelin@blackwaterbranding.net. And I'm really grateful that I got to talk with you ladies. This is such a nice chat. I felt so real. Out of all the things I've done, this has been like the most relaxed thing I think I've done. I really appreciate y'all.
Well, I'm so glad you could be here. And Christina as well. Yay, we did it.
We
Yes.
did. But I feel like I'm looking forward to doing more of these. I know some people like, First Fridays was usually an in-person thing, and like I told someone else, it's different. We're getting creative. But I love this. I definitely don't mind doing these for certain once a month, but it's always really nice to get to know the person and make more of a connection with the artist behind the work, especially when so much of us love your work and have enjoyed seeing it so far. And if you haven't seen her work, you need to just, hop in your car. I mean, you could literally drive right by it. You don't even got to get out your car with your mask and stuff. It's like right there for you to see. And I'm certain you'll love it. But thanks for hopping on this. And then just some last words, I guess. Me and Leslie are really looking forward to the next one of these too. And for all of you guys who've tuned in and with all the great questions and being so interactive with these. And of course, we're going to be posting more information of our next upcoming artists for those. But of course, you guys can help us at home with that by going to our page or right in the comments section, letting us know other artists you would love to get better acquainted with and just hear more about their story. I just think that helps so much. On First Fridays, especially what we took advantage of is getting to meet the artist was like the best part, and getting to hear their process and what's behind the work. And especially if you already love the work. So thanks so much though for sharing so much of your personal journey really with us. Because I feel like that's why I was like, I'm relating to so many things she's saying right now.
All right, I think that's it. So we'll be back, what, September 24th?
Yep, same time.
Same time, and hope to see you then. Take care, everybody. Peace.